Tov. We'll begin our service on page 186. It's very symbolic that the first blessing we say in the morning, the first word that we say in the morning is Modeh, Modah, Modim. That we say nothing before expressing gratitude. It is a decision to set our minds in gratitude mood. So I invite you to intentionally set your minds and your hearts. Let's all of us set our minds and our hearts in gratitude mode as we start this Shabbos morning together. לפניך מלך חי וקיים מודה אני לפניך רוח חי וקיים בלילה מודה אני לפניך שחסרת בי נשמתי בחמלה רבה אמונתך. חמלה רבה אמונתך. How great is to have your trust, is to have God's trust to start our days, to live up to become the best version of ourselves. And as we enter this sanctuary, after recognizing ourselves, we take a moment to acknowledge our community, the space that holds all of us together and that we build together. We turn our Sidurim to page 192. You know that Matovu, the words of Matovu come from Parashat Balak, the Torah portion that we will read next week. Can you hear me? I don't know how the sound works, so I'll get closer. So do you know that the words of Matovu on page 192 is the one between the brackets, right? So I don't know. Okay, so because you're in the second version of the Shabbat morning.
Make sure you have
there
the
is
purple.
another version. Here we are figuring everything out. So you know that the words of Matovu come from Parashat Balak that we will read next week. And it's a very special moment in the tradition in which there is a sorcerer who is hired in order to curse the people of Israel, but half sorcerer, half prophet, and he doesn't manage to do that. And instead of cursing them when he's looking at the encampment, at the tents of our people, he says, Matovu alecha Yaakov, how wonderful are your tents, O Jacob, and the homes that you have built Israel. And the beauty about this prayer is that it's supposed to be said not when you are sitting in the synagogue, actually. We do have, and we do that when we are sitting in the synagogue, but it's supposed to be chanted, it's supposed to be said while you are walking into the synagogue. It's a personal prayer. When you're outside the synagogue and you are walking in, you're supposed to be saying how wonderful is the home that we build together. So with that intention, as we start our morning together, we acknowledge that it's not only about the space that holds all of us together, but also about the space that we build together by being intentionally present. ברוב חסדך וביתך. אדוני אהבתי מאוד ביתך ומקום משכן כבודך. אלוהים ברוב חסדך ענני והמת אישך. We turn our Siurim to page 194. And we invite you to follow along, to daven, to pray quietly the words of our tradition for the blessing, for the well-functioning of our bodies, or alternatively to take a moment to think about your own body, to think about some specific part of your body that needs so loving attention. ברוך אתה אדוני, רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. And as we acknowledge our bodies, we remember that in our tradition, our bodies are holy vessels. And they're holy vessels because they are the carriers of our souls. Our souls are the divine chip of our existence. And through our bodies, we also access our souls. It is very symbolic that the word for breathing, neshima, and the word for soul, neshama, in Hebrew, are almost the same word. So before reciting the blessing for our souls, I invite you to dedicate a moment to breathe, just to breathe. Take a deep breath. And through our breath, create the space to connect with our souls. We're on page 196, 78. For the blessing for our souls and Eloi Neshama. Eloi Neshama שנתת בי טהורה היא. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהורה היא. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהורה, טהורה היא. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהורה היא. אלוהי שנתת בי טהור אני. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהורה, טהורה היא. Source of all creation, sovereign of all souls, praise are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai asher biyado nefesh kol chai, baruch kol basar ish. We will now turn our Siddur to page 198 for Birkot HaShachar. We call them Nisim Bechol Yom, blessings for the daily miracles. And I want you to notice something about these blessings. They go from the very universal components of our physical existence, the ability to distinguish between day and night, the ability to open our eyes, to being free, all the way to the very specific thing that brings many of us together, which is being Jewish. Many things that we sometimes take for granted, but they are not granted. You know, if you look, there's one of the blessings that says, who strengthens our steps, right? Have you ever had plantar fasciitis?
Mm-hmm.
It happens to clergy very often.
Oh, it hurts.
It happens to clergy very often. So it's about recognizing that our bodies really are fantastic machines and dedicating to them some really loving attention. So we will chant together the blessings for the daily miracles. Each of them is an entire wall, and lots of things have been written about every single one of them. So we'll here and there share some word, and you will hear that when we are chanting them, I might change here and there some word. Take it as a piece of interpretation, or as I read them to myself, and just go with the words that work for you. And I also want to invite you not to stay only on the words of our tradition, but to find a blessing that you shall say this morning. So we'll keep some space for that at the very end. So start thinking about it, something that you are grateful for in this morning of Shabbat. Birkot HaShachar, page 198.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given mind the ability to distinguish day from night.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive.
Amen. This is about being able to move our bodies and to stretch our bodies after waking up. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lift up the fallen. Straight your lower back. You happens in your lower back. This is about stretching. Many people do these blessings while doing yoga. So try to make sure that you feel your body. Do you feel your body? Your legs? Okay.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the water.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps. You might want to step a little bit.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has created all human beings equal.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
Who has given me free will. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a Jew.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Adonai our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, המלמד תורה לעמו ישראל. We're on page 206. We invite you to join Cantor, reading in English, Elu Dvarim. These are the things that are limitless.
These are the things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all.
You know why we add the blessing for the study of Torah and a short portion of a study of Torah in the morning blessings? It is about being able not only to reconnect with our physical existence, but also to reconnect every morning with our ethical existence, with our morality, with our values. Torah is at the center of our behavior, and as we start our days, we want to make sure that we are guided by its values. We'll now turn our Shirin to page 212 for the blessing for the Psukei de Simbra. The Psukei de Simbra is the section in our service in which we are intentional about elevating, uplifting our souls. We understand that uplifting our souls and feeling uplifted is not something that just happened. It's work, it's exercise. So during this time, we'll do that work together. We're on page 212 or 94. Baruch Shammai Baya Olam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Hoseh Bereishit, Baruch Omer Ve'oseh, Baruch Goser Umekayem, Baruch Merachem על הארץ, ברוך מרחם על הבריות, ברוך משלם שכר טוב לרע, ברוך אלעד וקיים לנצח, ברוך פועם ומציל, ברוך הוא, ברוך שמו אלי, אלי With songs of praise we extol you and proclaim your sovereignty. For you are the source of life in the universe, one God, life of the universe, praise and glorious ruler. Your name is eternal. Yalai lai lai lai, Melech meulal, batishbachot, Melech meulal, batishbachot, Baruch atah Adonai, Melech meulal, batishbachot. We now turn our Shirin to page 214, 96. We commence the Psukei de Simbra in Shabbat, granting Shabbat a wonderful song, Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat.
Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat, Tov lehodot LaAdonai, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
להגיד
בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, עלי אסור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בחינום. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. כי שמחתני אדוני בפועלך, ומעשה ידיך הרנן. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני מאוד, עמקו מחשבותיך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
We are at the top of page 215. Happy are those who dwell in your house. And speaking about house, speaking about home, I want to teach you something that I bring from my home. So it's called the Hasidic Ashrei. But now, to be very honest, I don't know any Hasidic that sings this Ashrei. I only know Argentinians that sing this Ashrei and call it the Hasidic Ashrei. So, but happy are those who dwell in your house. It's a reminder that it is for every single one of us to find our joyful spaces, to create those spaces in which we find joy. That joy is work. It doesn't just happen to us. Joy is the fruit and the product of commitment and work. So the melody is quite simple. We'll try to work this together. It's very, very simple. It goes like this. Let's try together. The second part. Lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, la la lai lai la la lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, ya lai lai lai, ya la la lai, ya la lai lai lai. I think you got it. We'll try it a bit faster now. Ya la la lai 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 la la lai 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 lai. Ya la 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 la, hey, ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. We'll try to add the words now. Ashrei יושבי ביתך עוד יעללוך סלע. אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יעללוך סלע. אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהי. ימבה לי 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 לי, ימבה לי 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 לי, ילי לי 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 לי, היי, ימבה לי 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 לי, ילי לי 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 לי, ילי לי 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 לי, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שכחלום, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו. Now, I'm about to follow along the reading of Ashrei quietly, or alternatively to take a moment for personal meditation and to think, what's that joyful place for you? What are the walls, the landscapes, the faces, the values that create that space for you? תהילת לדוד. ידבר פיו, וברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה. We're on page 218 for Psalm 150. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. כל נשמה תהליה, הללויה, הללויה. כל נשמה תהליה, הללויה, 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 כל נשמה תהליה, הללויה, הללויה. כל נשמה תהליה, הללויה, הללויה. נשמת כל חי, תברך את שמך, אדוני אלוהינו ברוח כל בשר, תפאר ותתרומם, זכרך מלכנו תמיד. We're on page 101, and listen to these incredible words of our tradition. God of the first and the last, God of all creatures, Master of all generations, who is praised in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness, and all creatures with mercy. Adonai neither slumbers nor sleeps. God awakens the sleeping, arouses those who slumber, gives speech to the mute. And God loosens the bonds of captives. God supports the fallen and strengthens those who are bent over. You alone do we acknowledge. And it's with that recognition, with that sense of completeness that we turn our Shirin to page 220. This wonderful poem, Ilufinu. Ilufinu maleh shira kayam. Even if our mouths were full of song as the sea and our tongues full of joy in countless waves, we could never find the words to express the depths of our gratitude. And it is actually how it sometimes goes. We feel so deeply grateful about something, and there are no words. We just can't say, we just can't coin our gratitude in words. And for those spaces, we have prayers. We know that they are not the exact words, But the words become carried. The prayers are carriers of those words that we don't know how to articulate, of those emotions that are so deep that cannot be expressed. So, we know a few melodies for Ilufino, right? I was told, Mark, that you know one of them. So maybe we do like a little congregational experiment, like a 3 voices thing. I have a few, happy to share in a different opportunity, but I think we want to go to something, let's do, it's a very simple one, so let's try to sing together. Mark, I will need some support here, and Canto, of course. Ilululu, ilululu, male shirakaya. Let's try. Ilululu, ilululu, male shirakaya. Ilululu, ilufinu, 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 male shirakaya.
Ilululu, ilufinu, male shirakaya.
Every heart will revere you, and every thought will sing to your name. Let all my bones exclaim, who is like you, Adonai. Bless Adonai, O my soul, and let my inner being praise your holy name. The end of the Psukei de Simbra is on page 222, page 104. And it concludes with a verse from Nishmat Kol Chai, which is the section that we just chanted, and with the blessing that somehow gives closure to this section of our service. שוכנת מרום בקדוש שמו, וכתוב רוננו צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נבט תהילה, בפי ישרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל, ורינה יתפאר שמך מלכנו, בכל דור ודור, ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול, בשמיים ובארץ, כי לך הנאה, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו באמותינו, שיר ושבחה ושמרה, עוז וממשלה, נצח וגדולה וגבורה, תהילה ותפארת, קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודאות, מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול ותשבחות, אל ההודאות, אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי שמרה, מלך ערכי העולמים. page 224, חצי קדיש.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, אמן. ועמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכו בית ישראל. בגלה ובזמן קריב והימרו
אמן.
יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולם ועלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמיד אמרי עלמה ויאמרו
Amen. We We're on page 226. We invite you to please rise for Barhu. And you know, Barhu is the blessing that we chant for the Shema, before the Shema, only when we have a minyan, only when we have a community around us. And therefore, to some extent, Barhu is the blessing for the community. And as we acknowledge the beauty and the diversity of our minyan, of our community, only when we do that is that we can recognize the unity of God. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer Shalom, shalom, uvoreh et hakom, yotzer or, uvoreh choshech, oseh shalom, shalom, uvoreh et hakom, uvoreh et hakom. In your goodness, your daily renewed creation, how numerous are your works, Adonai. In wisdom, you formed them all, filling the earth with your creatures. Be praised, Lord, our God, for the excellent work of your hands, and for the lights you created, may they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we all may swiftly merit its radiance. Praise are you, Adonai, creator of all heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer hameorot. Barava aftanu, Adonai Eloheinu, chemla gdola veitera, chamalta aleinu. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai, our God, praising us with surpassing compassion. Once again, as we get closer to the Shema, we try to think about the presence of unconditional, everlasting love in our lives. We think of that love coming from any source we can extract it, we can recognize it. For some of us, it might be a person, a face, a memory. For some of us, it might be nature, a landscape. For some of us, it might be our passions, the things that make us feel connected to the world, our existence in the world. We seek for that love before saying the Shema. We say, "Be'areneinu betoratecha, v'davek liveinu b'mitzvotecha." Enlighten our eyes with your Torah, focus our minds on your mitzvot. Unite our hearts in love and reverence for your name. And if you are wearing a talit, I invite you to put the four corners of your talit together before the Shema as a symbol of our search for unity and also for internal unity, for wholeness, for integrity. Guide us in peace from the four corners of the earth and lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, work wonders. You chose us truly. You drew us near to your great name, that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Praise be you, Adonai, who chooses your people Israel in love. Baruch atah Adonai, abocher be'amo Israel be'ahava. Turn our Siddurim to page 114 for the Shema. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai
את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. On the next page, 236. Adonai said to Moses as follows, "Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a cord of blue to the fringe at each corner. That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them so that you do not follow your heart and your eyes in your lustful urge. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
אמת, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. אמת ויציב בהו בחביב בן עולם בדיר ביתו ביפה דבר עשה אלינו לעולם בהד. We continue with the silent reading over page 238. God humbles the proud, raises the lowly, frees the imprisoned, redeems the afflicted, helps the oppressed, answering our people when we cry out. Praise to God Most High. Blessed is God and deserving of blessing. In great joy, Moshe, Miriam, and all Israel responded to you with song, all of them proclaiming, "Who is like you, O God? Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai." We're on page 240. Yam bam bam bim bim bam, yam bam bam bim bam, yam bam bam bim bim bam, yam bam bam bim bam. Ay la 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 la, yam bam bam bim bam. Ay ay la la,
yam bam bam bim bam. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, norati lo osefele. נורתי לו אוספלה שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו גמרה אדוני לו לעולם ועד מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורתי לו אוספלה, נורתי לו אוספלה. צאו ישראל, קומם בעזרת ישראל, ובדרך נאמך יהודה וישראל, גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו,
גאל ישראל.
We'll now turn our study to page 244 or 124. I apologize. I'm not used to the only Friday, Saturday Siddur. So I'm trying to go along with the numbers in the left side. So I'm getting used to that. So we invite you to please rise if you are able to rise on your legs. Otherwise, you can do it only in your spirit. And that works, of course, as well. As we turn toward Jerusalem and we look at our eternal capital, we think and we try to find our sense of shalom, our sense of connectedness, our sense of holiness and wholeness. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agi teilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, ve'Koneh HaKol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot ve'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לפני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים, תומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך? מלך במית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. יא לה 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 לה, יא לה לה שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב היה נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש קדוש קדוש, אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ, כבודו, אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. הללויה, הללויה, הללויה. Baruch Ata Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
ישמחו מלכותך שם בשבת וכל העונג ומקדשש בי, כולם יסבר בית הנר ובטובך ושבינו רוץ וקדשת. הם נדמים אותו קראת שכל למעשה וראשי, לא היינו ולא יעבודנו ואמתנו, לא נרח שם ורשם מצוותך ותקן ודרך לא יצא אמן, ואין מלך ישראל ותפלתם בבתך ובתי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עליכם. אנחנו נדון לציור, ואנחנו לך לדון אלינו ולעבודנו ואמתנו לעולם וצוחנו. Conclude תפילת עמידה, praying for peace on page 140.
Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Ein b'chesed v'rachamim Ein b'chesed v'rachamim
רחמים, שים שלום,
טובה וברכה שים שלום טובה וברכה עלינו ועל כל ישראל עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך שים שלום טובה וברכה שים שלום טובה וברכה שלום טובה וברכה שים שלום טובה וברכה.
Well, now, yes, turn our Sidurim to page 362. Cantor, is that the page that we are, in which we have the Torah service?
That is the page when I can find it myself.
I failed to prepare page numbers with this version of the Sidur. So, and I didn't-
362.
Is 362 here too?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. Okay, so page 362, please rise as we will open the ark and start our Torah service. אין כמוך באלוהים, אדוני, אין כמעשיך, מלכותך, מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוש לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני בירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. אחד אלוהינו גדול אדוננו קדוש שמו. אחד אלוהינו גדול אדוננו קדוש שמו. גדול אדוני איתי ונרוממה שמו יחדיו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו רוממו, רוממו רוממו רוממו. שבת שלום. אדוני אלוהינו רוממו, רוממו עמק קודשו, רוממו איי 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 איי. שבת שלום. איי 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 איי. שבת שלום. לה 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 לה. שבת שלום. איי איי איי. שבת שלום. לה 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 לה. איי 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 עבור אדוני ונדים, עבור אדוני כבוד ועושי די די, אלי די די די, אלי די די די, אלי די די, ידי די די, מדי די די די, ידי די די די, ידי די די די, ידי די די. Seated. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, Gary. We had a printer emergency this morning. So, thank God to our cantor and executive director, we were able to print the papers I needed. So, let's make a detour for 1 second, just to make sure that we make a detour. What's the name of this Torah portion? I wasn't going to talk about this, but I think it's important too. What? Chukat. What's the meaning of the word chukah or chok? And when you say something, can you also tell me your name so I kind of start to get? Say your name. You say, mine is Nico, and yours? Yeah, Reuben. Very nice to meet you, Reuben. Reuben, it's you. We've been hearing about you. Very nice to meet you. Okay. So what's the name of the Torah portion? You say chukat. And what's the meaning of the word chukat?
It's like a mitzvah. It's hard to describe that.
Good. It's exactly that. And Reuben is exactly right. Why? It's a mitzvah. It's hard to describe. Why? Because the mitzvot, what are the mitzvot? And wait, I want to warn you. Now, if you're about to say good deeds, don't say that. Don't say that, because then I will drop the bomb of truth and say, no, it's not. But sometimes mitzvot are good deeds. Very often, mitzvot are good deeds. And I do believe that the mindset of fulfilling mitzvot is, at the end of the day, a mindset that leads to moral behavior. But mitzvot are not good deeds. Mitzvot are commandments, obligations. You know, very, very often we try to make this connection between the way of thinking about things that we have here in the United States. We think about things in which, what's the word that we say all the time? Rights. We have rights. You say that, Ruben, right? Thank you. So the language is the language of rights. The language of Judaism is the language of mitzvot. It's the language of obligations. And they sometimes meet, but sometimes they don't. And here is an example of something that is a bit more complicated. The word chukah, chok, means law. Now, there are two kinds of mitzvot in the Torah. And I'm stopping on this, and this was a detour. We'll talk about something else in 1 minute. So there are two kinds of mitzvot in the Torah. One is chukim. We say chukim umishpatim. Come on, you all heard the David Friedman's melody. And we all know from there. So chukim is one of the kind of mitzvot. Chukat, this Torah portion. We'll talk about one of those mitzvot. And we'll talk about that in one moment. And mishpatim, judgments, are a different kind of mitzvot. Now, here is the interesting thing. Mishpatim are mitzvot that are comprehensible. Are those that we can understand. They say, okay, this makes sense. Okay, so this is a mishpat. This is what you are supposed to do, and you understand. You might disagree, but it makes sense. We are liberal Jews. We can decide that we go in a different direction. Once we know what's the idea that's coming from the Torah, we can say, well, it doesn't work for us. But it makes sense. Chukim, nobody knows. And we have a bunch of those. Chukim are those that we can't necessarily explain. There's a value behind chukim, and I'll share that value. It's for a way longer conversation. Now, what's the chok that is going to be introduced in this Torah portion? What's the law that's going to be introduced in this Torah portion? The red heifer. Now, the tradition says that that's the most important law. Like, really? Like, come on. Like, the red heifer? No. Para aduma, it's kind of, So you're supposed to burn a red cow. Like, it has to do with the loss of purity. There's some explanation that links that to Egel HaZa'af, to the golden calf. But truth is a hawk. We don't really know. Now, what's the value behind following instructions? I'm asking you. Don't look at me like you don't know. You know.
What was the last word you said? I didn't get it.
What's the value behind, and I know that the sound is not most helpful, and also right now, because I'm speaking here from the middle of the sanctuary, and also I have a little accent, and it takes some time to get used to, so feel comfortable to ask me if you miss something I have said. I ask, and I never know what I said a second before. Oh, thank you. So yes. That could be the only problem that I already forgot. But what's the value behind following instructions? To do something the right way. You say, and remind us your name, Diane? Diane. Good. To do things the right way. Is there possibly another value that could emerge from following instructions? I'll put something out there, and we will move into something else now. Discipline. Commitment. The entire idea behind the structure of the mitzvot is to create a structure of commitment. It's not about not asking questions, because our tradition is not about asking, our tradition is not about forgetting to ask questions. It's about asking questions all the time. But our tradition is also about commitment. It's about doing things. Not so much of speaking about things or defining ourselves for the sake of doing things, but doing them. And I think that the idea of chukim u'mishpatim is a kind of the whole enchilada. Like, you get it all. And there are things that are perfectly fine and they make perfect sense in our world. And there are many things that we don't necessarily understand. There are so many things that we deal with in our world that don't make any sense to us. We can't explain them. And nonetheless, we need to deal with them. And I think that the power of the chukim is to train us for that kind of work. For the work with the things that don't necessarily make sense. For the work of the things that we can't necessarily explain with our own values, with our generational perspective. Now, that was the detour. Let's talk about what I actually wanted to talk about. And we'll do it quickly, okay? So because I already got you here for a couple of minutes. So I want to go back to that moment that we discussed yesterday, in which Moshe is going to hit the rock as opposed to speak to the rock. Now, Torah says, "Vayaver Adonai el Moshe le'emor," and Adonai, Yah, Yud Hei B'Hei, spoke to Moses, saying, "Kach et hamate v'hakael et ha'edah." Et a community, bring together the community. You and your brother take the rod and assemble the community. And before their very eyes, order the rock to yield its water. Thus you shall produce water for them from the rock and provide drink for the congregation and their beasts. Moses took the rod from before Adonai, as he had been commanded. Until here, he's following instructions. Moshe and Aaron assembled the congregation in front of the rock, and he said to them, "Listen, you rebels. Shall we get water for you out of these rocks?" I want to stop here. And then he will hit the rock, right? Instead of speaking to the rock, he will hit the rock. That's a completely different conversation. Now, the word that we see here is the word rebels. That's the word that Moses uses to address the people. Now, what's the Hebrew word that is written in the Torah? Morim. Now, very often for the word rebels in Hebrew we say mordim, not morim. Still, it's one of the words that we use for the word rebels. And I want to think for a moment about the way in which Moses is addressing the people. It says in the Iturei Torah, we read that Moshe and Aaron's fundamental sin was to speak to them in this way. In Maimonides' opinion, he's saying the Iturei Torah, although many prophets spoke in this tone, here the approach did not correspond. The children of Israel were asking for water, something essential for human life. So what the interpretation is saying, they were asking for something that makes sense. So give them a break. Now, there was no need to speak so harshly. And the reason why the leaders of the desert generation, Moshe and Aaron and Miriam, died without being able to enter the land of Israel was that the entire generation of the parents had died and the children remained. And the difference between the later and the leaders of Israel was already 3 or 4 generations. The older ones, Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam, were no longer in position to lead the younger ones. So the commentators are somehow saying, well, there is a generational gap. But also they're saying Moshe is kind of losing it. He's losing his ability to communicate with the people. Now, Moshe was never a good communicator. But Aaron was. And he's not doing that job either. The two of them, it's just not working. Despite their greatness, they lack the feeling of respect that every leader should have for their people. Moshe himself, now this is an important thing. We know Moshe to be the Torah says, Anav Beyoter, like the most humble person in earth. So this is the most humble person in earth, and even the most humble is losing. All the years that the older generation lived with everything that made him angry, he did not address them with harsh words. I promise to have a better folder for next time. I have them in some box. And always treated them with respect and consideration. And now, when he addresses his children for the first time, who complained to him, for the first time he tells them, listen now, rebels. It is then that God decrees. So the rabbis are saying, it's not that he hit the rock. That's fine. The problem is that he said he addressed them with the wrong vocabulary. He mistreated them. It's not about God's kabod, respect. It's about his respect toward the people. But that's a different interpretation. Now, listen now, rebels. It is then that God decrees that Moses must die in the desert. And the same thing happened with Aaron. He who loved peace and persecuted it, who knew how to defend the older generation when he made the golden calf, found no words on this occasion to defend the young. And that is why he too was punished. So he didn't work as an advocate. His job was to be an advocate, and he didn't work. He didn't fulfill his job. Now this is a very interesting twist. Now, I want you to hear what the Berdichev rabbi says about this. The Berdichev rabbi is one of the Hasidic rabbis, a writer of Kedushat Levi, Hasidic work. This was Moshe's sin. Since when Israel goes through a difficult time, it is necessary to help it instead of admonishing it. And although they said, and he's citing the Talmud in Brachot 5b, if a man sees misfortune befalling him, he has to review his own actions. This refers to his own actions and not to the actions of others. So what does it mean? What's the Berdichev rabbi saying? Go, Jerry. You're not used to talk here, right? Like I understand that because of your silence, I understand that that's not the custom here. So let's break the custom for once, and maybe next week as well. But let's have a quick conversation. Why is the Berdichev rabbi saying, using this Talmudic idea, that if a man or a woman recognize, or any creature, recognize misfortune around them, they for sure need to check their own actions.
Now that you said a woman could talk.
Okay, let's do the woman talk right now. Okay.
When you see misfortune, you have to think about how did you contribute? What's your part?
I'm going to bring you a microphone because I'm just realizing that if we have people online, they're not going to be able to hear you.
Make sure it's on.
It's not on? Do you know how to turn it on? I do. You do. You know how to turn this on. I'd say, okay, I was pushing it. No, sliding. Thank you.
When you encounter misfortune, you should think about what your part is. How did you have responsibility? Or what is your responsibility to alleviate the misfortune?
Love your explanation. Ruth Aldivar, right?
Ruth.
Yes, Ruth. So I love your explanation, Ruth. So what she's saying is, if you are seeing misfortune around you, apparently you have some part. We are always somehow connected to our environment. You know, you cannot explain that whatever wrong is happening in the environment has nothing to do with you. If something is wrong in the environment, even if you have this tendency to say, no, actually it was Jerry's fault, actually. It was only his fault. You know, but fine, like we tend to do that, but what the Berditchev rabbi is saying is, no, you better take a step back and ask yourself, what's your responsibility on this? You know, one technique I learned from one of my educational mentors many years ago, we were, he was a giant guy, physically giant, and we were running a camp in Haifa University for children that came from not privileged environments, and we're training them in technology. And a group of kids did some messy something. I don't know what was the situation. I don't remember. And he brought me with him to a room, and he approached them. He was a scary person. Now, he was the sweetest guy, but he looked very scary. And he enters the room, has a very short conversation with them, and instead of scolding them, he says, I don't want to hear anything but what's your responsibility, your personal responsibility in this situation. Once I hear that, we're done. The conversation took 3 minutes. There were no excuses. There was no need for that. Everybody was invited to share what their parts were. And they just acknowledged it. We put it into a table and say, okay, just try better. And that was it. And what the Berditchev rabbi is saying is, Moshe is saying that they are rebels, but there might be something else. And I want to give two perspectives on this, and I will make a quick shortcut now. The first one is that who is going to act as a rebel a second later? Moshe himself. Because Moshe is told to speak to the rock, and he hits the rock. The Talmud says, aposel bemumo posel. When you recognize a defect, something that is wrong in someone else, you're actually speaking about the defect that you yourself have. The Baal Shem Tov will explain this as the idea of the mirror. He would say, every time you see something that is wrong, think of that as a mirror, because you are looking at yourself. Now, one more thing about the word morim. The word morim also encompasses the word mar. What's the meaning of the word mar? Mar means bitter. Maror. You all know that. Come on. Or from alkoleli, alamarve, alamatok. The bitterness. He's telling them also, you're rebels and you are bitter. Now, who is really bitter? And says the Rashar Hirsch, Rabbi Shishon Raphael Hirsch, that the source of that bitterness is that when he's lifting up the staff, he realizes that for 40 years, he has been dealing with the same problems. It's the same story. It's not changing. And then he's bitter. He has no energy to deal with that anymore. That's when he loses it. And that's why we need a generational change there. Not because Moses is incapable, because he just doesn't want to do that work anymore. Because it turns out that Moses is a human being. If anything, we are just seeing his humanity. He's tired. He needs a different job. Like we all need to change jobs at some point. I didn't mean that as a self-reference. Whatever, whatever. So that wasn't the reaction I was expecting. Anyway, so that happens. You can't disconnect Torah from your own life. And I really didn't mean that as self-referential. And I want to give you one more thing, like a little thing, which is a kind of, it's a little pearl. I referred to this yesterday night. And I said that rocks, slaim, sela, we have several words for the word rock. We have the word tzur, the word even, and we also have sela. And in this case, we are talking about the word sela. He hit the sela. Now, the word sela appears in different ways in our tradition, not necessarily as the sela of water, but slaim appear sometimes in negative contexts, but sometimes in very positive ones. In Shirat Azinu, at the end of the Torah, when Moshe, I want to redeem him. I want to redeem him for 1 second. When Moshe is singing the last song, the grand finale, he's looking at the rocks very differently now. He's not bitter anymore. And he says, God set them atop the highlands, the feast on the yield of the earth, nursing them, the Israelites, with honey from rocks, from slaim, and all from those same rocks. I think that Moshe redeemed himself right at the end, and I think that we all can change and we all can see sometimes places that are difficult become sweet as honey. So with that prayer, we will commence our Torah reading for Parashat Hukat. Hukat. Yes, Hukat. No Korach, Hukat.
Okay. Ya'amdu Shira bat Abraham v'Sarah ve'Elisha ben Shmuel v'Chana Harishon in honor of Carol's birthday yesterday. Somewhere here, Carol, I have the... Hey, Eli? Here, come on over on this side. I'll give you that. Wait, what did I do with my papers? I don't lose them. Oh, I can go by myself. I know how to do that. I just look. Okay, we're right up here.
That way, it's not for you. It's not your benefit that I will be your God. It will be very confusing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Here, Carol, if you will hold this for me, please. Amen. Vayavohu v'nei Yisrael kol ha'eda mitbartzin b'chodesh harishon vayeshev ha'am b'kadesh v'tamot sham Miriam v'tikaver sham v'lo haya mayim le'eda v'yikalu that's I just where ויקהלו על משה ועל אהרון, וירב העם עם משה, ויאמרו לאמור, ולא גבנו בגבהנו לפני אדוני.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'hayei olam nata betohenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And we wish you many, many, many more birthdays. I'm going to have you come right over here. Ta'amo Nachama Yehudit Bat Yosef Rivka Hasheni. Yes.
I want to put in my finger.
That's all I need.
I will do that.
That's all I need. Hey, wait, Diane. We are right there.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Amvarach Leolam Vahed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher bachar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. Oh, Diane, could you go that very please? Amen. Velama havetem et kahal Adonai el hamidbar hazeh lamut sham anachnu uvirenu velama ta'alitunu mimitzrayim lehavi otanu el hamakom hara hazeh lo makom zera ut en nahava gefen verimon umayim ein lishtot vayavo Moshe ve'Aharon mipnei hakahal el petach ohel moed vayiplu al pneihem vayera kevod Adonai alehem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yishar koach. We'll have you come over this way. Ya'amdu Zipporah bat Miriam v'Liron ben Avraham Sarah hashlishi. Yeah, but you can start it over there. I know where it is. Right here.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Linda, if you'll hold that for me, please. Amen. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, kach et hamate, v'hakel et ha'eda ata, v'Aharon achicha, v'dibartem el hasela le'eineihem v'natan memam, v'hotzeta lahem mayim. והוצאתה למים מן הסלע, והשקיטה את העדה ואת בעירם. ויקח משה את המטה מלפני אדוני, כאשר ציווהו. ויקהילו משה ואהרון את הקהל אל פני הסלע, ויאמר להם, שמונה המורים מן הסלע, I know, I just got it. המין הסלע הזה נוציא לכם מים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yeshar koach. Yeah. Hamafter. Ya Amor Reuven ben Zeverut HaRevi'i.
Reuben, who is going to be celebrating. You're going to be celebrating your
Next year.
70th anniversary of your bar mitzvah
Which
next
was-
year, in June next year.
The delayed. The delayed.
And it's going to be in this Torah portion. Am I
Yes,
correct?
correct.
So he's going to be coming up to a Torah a year from today for Parashat Chukad. How old are you going to be then, Reuben?
How old?
Yes.
Next year, won't you be 85?
No, I was going to be 82, but I missed it. I'm not sure because of COVID, it changed.
We are not sure. It's
Dan,
going to
how-
be more than 70.
Dad, how old
It's,
did you
uh,
turn last week?
13?
It's going
How
to
old
be
did
like
you turn last week?
No, I didn't yet.
No, you had a birthday last week. Oh, no, it's in July. Never mind.
He did not have a birthday last week.
I should know.
The
when
man
his
knows.
birthday is.
He
No,
knows.
something else was last week. So, okay, I'm
Okay,
so
so
confused.
all
Okay,
these
here we-
simchas.
Dad, take the
Anyway,
Tali.
Ken Yirbu, we want as many simchas as possible, so we are going to be celebrating a year from today, Reuben's bar mitzvah. So make sure that you all come.
Please. Okay. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMavarach.
Baruch Adonai mevorach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMavarach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayare Moshe et yado, vayach et hasela b'matehu pa'amayim, vayetzu mayim rabim, vatesht ha'eda uviram. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe ve'el Aharon, Ya'an lohem antem bi, lehakdisheni le'enei bnei Yisrael, lachen lo tavi'u et hakahal hazeh el haaretz asher natati lahem. Emamei meriva asher avu bnei Yisrael et Adonai vayikadesh bam.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
ישברך אבותינו ואמותינו, אברהם יצחק ויעקב, שרה רבקה, רחל ולאה, הוא יברך את כל העולים לתורה. May the one who bless our ancestors, will bless all those that came up to the Torah in honor of our congregation, Torah and Shabbat. May God send blessing to all of them, to all of you. Rescue from any trouble or distress, healing from any illness, minor or serious, and may God send success in all your endeavors together with all.
Amen.
We'll now take a moment also while the Torah is open to acknowledge those that are in need of healing. We think of those in need of healing in their bodies, in their souls. We think of those dealing with addictions. We think of those carrying grief. And if you have a name that you'd like to share in this morning of Shabbat, we invite you to do so.
Members of our congregation, Rich Jack Long, Don Gringorton, Bruce Roberts, Stuart Mass, June Chapman, Mira Engel, Ann Sharon, Maggie Scardigli, Alfreda Massman, Lori Shaken, Debbie and Arnie Pink, Gail Frankel, and those who are friends or family of our congregation, Richard Ravitch, Lauren Janovich, Fern Bear, Lillian Sidlow, Mary Sasso, Kay Dameron, Angela Evans, Pesel Bat Anasara, Barbara Mintz, and Jonathan Stern.
May the blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for the house to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send to all of them a complete renewal of body and spirit, together with all Israel, and let us say,
Amen.
רפואה שלמה והחלמה מהירה. We wish to all of them, to all of you, to all of us, a complete and a fast recovery. Agba Anglila. I do Agba?
We'll let you do hot dogs.
Thank you. Please rise for Agba. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני
בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. וזאת התורה אשר
שם משה
לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה.
Yada dai 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 Yada dai 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 Yada dai 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 Yai dai 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 Yai dai dai Yai dai 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 Yai dai 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 dai
Page
את
374.
חיימי למחזיק עמה בתומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם בכל נתיבותיה שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש ימינו כקדם. Return us to you, Adonai, and we will return. Renew our days as of in days of old, and help us understand that the path of return always begins from within our hearts, from the ability, from our own ability to look at ourselves in the mirror, that it is on us, that is aleinu. It's on us to find that path, to do that work. We're on page 588. והשבותה אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים והשבותה אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. May be seated. As we move toward Kaddish, we acknowledge those during the different cycles of time in mourning. We first acknowledge those during the first 7 days of mourning Shiva. And if you are remembering someone, we invite you to rise If you're doing the first 30 days of mourning, Shloshim, please rise. If you are during the cycle of the first year of mourning, please rise and share with us who you're remembering. Yes.
No, just say that. Who are we remembering?
The name of.
Who are we remembering?
Just say.
Mimi
Yes.
Levy. Wolfgang Levy.
And if you have a yahrzeit this week, the anniversary of someone passing by this time of the year, please rise and share with us who what was your mother's name? You remember also someone? I want you to be aware of something. What I'm trying to do, I want to be able to recognize mourners within the community. If you all stand at the same time, we have no idea who are the mourners. I want to see you. I want for everybody to know, because when you are in time of mourning, there's a responsibility coming from the community to be there, to be community to you. But if we don't know that today is a special day for you because you are remembering a beloved one, or because you are doing the first year of mourning, it's very hard to be there to support you. I want to make sure that we do recognize you. So, as you share the names of your beloved ones, please remain standing. So don't disappear. So Ruben was standing for Mimi, and you were standing also for your mother. And remind us her name.
My mother's name is
Lorraine. And you can stand, remain standing. And you were about to stand, Jerry. Were you were to share a name with someone? Your? Your grandmother is her yahrzeit today, in this week. Now you can support our fellows who are standing or sitting, joining us with your voices and your hearts for Kaddish Avelim, Mourner's Kaddish, on page 598.
And we remember those loved ones from our congregation, or loved ones for our congregation, whom death has recently taken from us. Fred DeCastro, Sherry Skihan, Larry Eisen, Harry Gross, Michael Tubb, David Schwartz, Rhoda Fryman, Elied Foner Lipsitz, Ron Wolk, Tamara Noten, Mimi Levy, James C. Price, Colette Kaplowitz, Rita Smith, David Corman, Jay Guadalupe Chavez, Newt Westergren, Elizabeth Ludwig, Bernard Kennis, Charles Stone, Rima Zareski, Leonard Popowitz, Mark Elliott, and those who died at this season in years past: William Brunner, Zella Greenfield, R. Lynette Jenkins, Rita Latween, Wolfgang Levy, Harriet Lappin, Ethel Fargostein, I'm going to say that, sorry, Jerry, Jeanette Pickard, Lorraine Olson, Zella Greenfield, Florence Steiner, Marvin Yawitz. And if there are other names that you would like to name at this time, we invite you to do so now. The memories of all of them are with us. Our grief and sympathy are mingled, supporting those who mourn. We recite the Mourner's Kaddish, page 598 again. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei t'chol Beit Yisrael. B'gala v'zman kari v'yimru amen.
Yeh shemei Rabbah mevorach leolam ulmei almaya yitbarach.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to all Israel and to all of us, to which we say, Amen.
Yeah. May the memories of your dear ones be always a blessing. Yes, Zichron Baruch. You may be seated.
Short announcements.
Sure.
We invite you in just a few weeks to come join Rabbi Nico at Sanborn Park at 10:30 a.m. I know there are some people looking for rides, and we will make sure that they get them.
As soon as we know also where Sanborn Park is.
We'll make sure you know. And we invite you to bring a picnic lunch with us so that after we celebrate our musical morning service, that we can all join in a repast together for Shabbat. And you can register on the temple calendar, and that's mostly just so we know who is coming. Saturday, August 13th, Roaring 20s Speakeasy Gala at 6:30 p.m. Please register on our website. And our 2022 Shir Hadash Backpack Drive is now through August 5th. Please help our families, and you can find more information again on our website. And I'm going to add one extra one that isn't here. We are looking for people to potentially cook and put some food into our freezer for those in our community who may be in need of food when they are ill or grieving. So if you like to bake and you like to cook, please cook a little extra and put it in a freezer container, and we will put it in our freezer for those in our community who are in need.
Beautiful. Kiddush?
Kiddush.
So we don't have cups for everyone this time. We'll do Kiddush here from the bima. Outside there is a... So
Look, outside is
So we're gonna do Kiddush. Can I suggest that we conclude the service and then we go out and we do Kiddush fast together? It's okay?
Sure.
To do like this improvise.
That's what we used to do.
Okay, so we're gonna do that. So no Kiddush now.
Okay.
So Adon Olam.
Adon Olam.
Adon
Page
Olam.
625.
Page 625, and if you feel comfortable making eye contact with someone who is not necessarily your direct partner, and making sure that each one of us is seen, is recognized. That's one of the most important purposes of community. Page 625, Adon Olam. Adon Olam asher malach בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה בחפצו כל
אזי מלך שמו נקרא
אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו והוא היה והוא עובד והוא יהיה ותפארה והוא יהיה ותפארה והוא אחד ואין שני להמשילו להחבירה ולי ראשית ולי תכלית ולא העוז והמצרה ולא העוז והמצרה והוא אלי וחי גואלי בצור חבלי בצרה והוא ניסי ובנוס לי מנת כוסי ויום אקרא מנת כוסי ויום אקרא בידו, we may to please rise. הפקיד רוחי ותשען והעירה והין רוחי in my spirit גבי גביעתי because God is with me. If we are in community, we have no reason to fear. Adonai li velo ira Adonai li lo ira Adonai os le'amav iten Adonai yevarech et amo b'shalom. May God bless all of us with wholeness, with peace. Shabbat shalom umevorach ereual Yalai, lalai, 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 lalai. Ya lai la la lai, ya la la lai la lai, ya lai lai lai, ya lai lai lai, ya la 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 lai lai. Shave shave.